Now we need to go through the process of sheet creation. To do this, underneath the project browser, scroll down on the list, and you'll see that there's currently a category named Sheets, but it doesn't have anything underneath it. The reason is that we have not yet created a new sheet view that'll have our title block as well as these different views that we've been creating thus far in the project. To accomplish this, you have one of two ways that you can do it. The first way is to right-click where the word Sheet is at, and then selecting on New Sheet. This is the way that I have a tendency to do it the most often, but I'll point out that underneath the View tab up here as well, there's also an option for New Sheet. So regardless of if you select on that icon there, or click on New Sheet after right-clicking on the word Sheets, you'll come to this dialog box here, the New Sheet dialog box. From here, you can pick what size border that you want off of your list. For this project, we're just going to use the default Revit title block, and then click on OK. And this will bring up our title block. To pull some of this information, some of these views, over onto our sheet, what we can do is scroll up, find a floor plan that we want to put onto the sheet. And in this case, I'm going to select on this plan here that says Level 1. Click, hold your mouse button down, move your cursor over toward the sheet, then let go of your button. You'll see this box following you around on the sheet. We won't do this, but if we wanted to rotate this view on the sheet, we could change it right here on the options bar. But we can click, in this case right here, in order to place our floor plan view out on our sheet. We can do the same thing with some of our other views. In this particular case, I want to find a section view and then pull this section 1 out onto our sheet. And then click to place it there on the sheet. Also, as far as the creation of sheets is concerned, you'll have the title block that'll more than likely get automatically placed because that's just part of your selection process when you're creating the sheet. If you select on the title block and then zoom in down toward the bottom of it, you'll see that certain text shows up as being blue. Any of that text that shows up as blue, you can click on and type in whatever information makes sense to you. In the case of owner, go ahead and put your name here in the owner category. There'll be an option here that says project name. You can click there, and if you want to type in a project name there, feel free to go ahead and do that. And you can name this sheet or give the sheet a number that you'd want it to display when it comes time to print the set off, or be referenced by those details over here. Now, when I say referenced by those details, if we take a look here at the section box, we can see this is 2A101. It's pulling that A101 information from the sheet number down here. If we would click here in the box and change this to be sheet A102, we'll then be able to see this is now A102 up here on our section symbol. Also, if you zoom out and then take a look at this section over here, we'll see that it is number 2. And then by clicking on the view itself and then clicking on the number, we could change this to be a different number if we wished. If we in reality wanted this to be number 3, the third detail, simply change that to a 3. And then you'll notice that over here where that section symbol showed up, this is now section number 3. So the creation of sheets is done by right-clicking and doing a new sheet, or coming underneath View and selecting New Sheet. Also, pulling these different views onto the sheet is done by finding the view over under the project browser, clicking, holding your mouse down, dragging to place that view on the sheet. And ultimately, all these sheets reflect the information that shows up in the project as well as down here on the title block. One of the functions that I use the most in Revit is activate views once they've been placed onto a sheet. Now, the process of activating a view is to zoom in on the view you want to be able to make a change to, clicking when that box shows up around the view, and it'll show up whenever you highlight over that view. When you do that, there'll be an option that says Activate View. Select on Activate View, and you'll notice that everything that's not directly in that view becomes grayed out. And from here, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can select on different things, and you can make changes directly to your model while you're in the sheet. So as a result of that, if you have a very tight sheet with lots of details all crammed around the view that you're currently working in, you'll know that you can draw your dimensions up to a certain point, put your text out to a certain point before crossing over all those other details. You'll know that you have your arrangement so that it reads correctly and appropriately on your sheet. Then whenever you've finished detailing it out, making the changes that you want to do, you then need to deactivate the view to go back to your sheet. To accomplish that, the easiest way is to just right-click, and there'll be an option there that says Deactivate View. As soon as you do that, you'll notice that everything is no longer grayed out, and you can then move over and then activate another view, such as select on the view, activate the view, make any changes that you need to the view, then right-click and deactivate view. So by accomplishing this, you can make changes directly on the sheet and see the relationships of all these changes that you're making to all the other views that are currently placed on the sheet. Once your views are on sheets, there's 3 different ways that you can scale your views so that they show up the appropriate size on your sheet. The first way is to go back into the view itself and just double-click where it has level 1 on the project browser. Here we have the scale of the view, and it's associated with this specific view. So if I select down there at the bottom, and then change this to be 3/32 equals 1 foot, we can see what looks like the bubbles here have changed in their size, and everything has actually rescaled itself. Well, the reality is that whenever you choose the scale down here associated with the view, the things that are pieces of text will stay the same size. In other words, it'll stay the same printed size. So an 1/8" piece of text will stay an 1/8" printed size piece of text. What we saw is that everything else scaled down, and this text stayed at the same printed size when we changed it from down here. If we close this view down, we can see that this view, which was the same view that we just changed, is now smaller on our sheet of paper. We can verify this by selecting on the view, going over here to Properties, and then seeing what the view scale is associated with this view. Now this is the second way that you can change the scale of the view. Just by highlighting on the view, you can move over to the view scale, and instead of going back into the original view, you can change the view scale here. Select on 1/8" equals 1 foot. And you'll notice that it scaled itself back up again. But that text, like I mentioned before, is still at the same printed size. So you don't need to tell the text to be at a certain scale. When the text is originally set up, you pick text which happens to be the right size, 1/8 of an inch, 3/32 of an inch, and it'll always print at that scale. The third way that you can do it, and really it's probably the slightly more labor-intensive way, is to select on the view, come up to Activate View, and then change the scale of different scales that you have available. This is the same as going back into the original view and changing it there. Whenever you're done, you can right-click and then Deactivate View. That'll bring you back to your sheet of paper, and the scale will then go away. So, to adjust the different sizes of whether it be your floor plans, your sections, really anything inside of the Revit environment, all you need to do is highlight over it, select, and then either change the view scale here, or come up to Activate View, come down and change the scale related to the view down here, then right-click, Deactivate View, or go back into the original view under the project browser, and then change the scale of the view from that location.